Hello everyone and welcome back to another Sinsol video. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from the usual speed build, and we're going to be renovating a luxurious apartment in Myshuno, which is of course the world that came with a bunch of different apartments. And we're going to start off by renovating this one, which is the Landgraab apartments, and there's 2 units, and we're going to select this one. And I feel like this one has a very nice contrasting black and white style, and if you guys have seen my previous builds on the channel, you guys would know I love my like monochromatic modern builds and stuff like that. So I want to do something like that. I was kind of just like wanting to do this because the last renovation that I did for apartments was almost like an entire year ago from today, and I want to just like kind of get back into creating a few of these renovational apartments in The Sims 4 in this month and just see how it goes. So you guys can already see like it has a very nice simple kind of like semi base game build to it, and I'm gonna end up like kind of changing the style and like the actual structure of like and the layout of like how I want everything to be. So they have like a very spacious modern looking kitchen here, and I actually really love this design, but I'm gonna kind of just like change it up a little bit. I'm gonna keep the toilet in like the same area, I think, because I like the way it probably like fits in that little area, and we're going to just like try to see how it goes from there. And I'm trying to carefully do it so that I don't get rid of the windows, because The Sims now allows you to remove the apartment windows, so I'm just like trying to make sure that I don't do that. And they have a really weird box here for some reason. I don't know why the initial sort of design has this. I know it just like breaks the space apart a bit and makes it look a bit more interesting rather than having like a huge rectangle, but I still feel like we can use that in a different way. Let me just get rid of the bathroom as well. Okay, perfect. I think this is like a nice shell to start off with, and I'm just going to place some lights because I feel like it will just be really helpful to just see what we're doing. And I'm also going to get rid of this stairway, but actually wait, I'm going to copy it first because I want this exact same one with the like the hollow bits in between the steps. So I was thinking of something like this, but of course we're going to just like change it up a little bit so that it's centered with the actual space. And I really like this initial design. We're going to fix this in a second. I'm going to also use this little area, but I'm just going to move it over a little bit. Since we have quite a lot of space going on here, I kind of want to make this like a huge open floor plan design, which I feel like the original kind of was like that as well, but I just want to make it a bit more obvious in this version. So I'm going to just create this right over here, and since it is not centered, and I'm going to place this in the center. And I feel like I actually really like how this is looking. So we're going to have the kitchen area in the center, some sort of seating area here with like a bar maybe potentially. And then we're going to have the actual living space over here, which is a little bit smaller, but I still feel like it will definitely work very nicely, especially outlooking these very nice windows. And we're also going to have a huge spacious dining table area here. So I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. I noticed that it doesn't actually fit nicely with the exterior window, so we're gonna have to think about that. Maybe we can lower it one more. And I feel like that is actually a lot nicer, especially since it does open up the space a lot more, because we have such a weird entranceway which has this weird diagonal area, which I don't know how we're gonna make it look like any better, but I feel like this is like the best way we can go, just by like making it look as open as possible. Moving up on the second floor now, I want to make this balcony area. So as I mentioned like in the beginning of this video, I wanted to keep the original structure of the build, so we're still going to keep this like sort of overhang area where you can look down, which I feel like would look super interesting. So yeah, I just moved these like one tower in a little bit more just to make a little bit more space in the actual floor plan itself. And then when we move upstairs, we're also going to have this huge block here which is going to house the fireplace and the TV area, which I feel like would look super interesting. There we go. I think that actually looks a lot nicer, to be honest, when it has like a bright open color. And we're also going to change the actual flooring for the second floor as well. So just going to get rid of all of this. And on this side of the house, I feel like since this is a 2-bedroom house, I want to also try to incorporate some sort of crib in the center. So it's kind of just like a, not like a new family home, but more so just like something that is appropriate for any type of family home, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to try to make a small spacious space right in the center, and then also get rid of this door and actually move it over here, but we're going to use a different door later on. And I'm just going to place a bathroom right here, And I'm also thinking of placing another bathroom right here. So this one's going to be the public bathroom, and then this would be the primary bedroom suite. And of course they will have their own ensuite as well, which will be a little bit bigger because I feel like it would kind of make a lot more sense to have it that way. And I'm also going to stick with the same colors for the windows as they have placed here, just so it like remains consistent with the rest of the apartment building. And I'm actually really loving this huge landing area. And yeah, so now we can finally move on to adding some of the actual flooring and the wallpapers. Kind of want to maybe experiment with some carpet maybe. I don't actually mind these two carpets at all, to be honest. I feel like they actually work very nicely for a luxurious apartment suite. And I also really love these tiles that came from the Love Struck expansion pack as well. I feel like they fit most of my modern mega mansions, and I feel like it would look very nice in this apartment as well. And I'm just going to use the exact same railing around this staircase as well. So this is kind of a common issue that I come up with when it comes to like building and stuff, where we have the railing that actually matches the window, which I feel like is very ugly and is not really the wisest thing to do. I tend to just go into the plant section and use this nice simple planter that came from Businesses and Hobbies. I feel like this is definitely a better solution than just like having the railing go all the way into the window. But yeah, so moving back downstairs, we're gonna start off by adding some of this wallpaper onto this build. So I actually really like this pattern plaster that came with the build initially, so I will definitely consider using this in certain areas of the build. But I also want to incorporate some nice simple plain colors as well, which is this boldly brushed wallpaper, which I feel like is very versatile and suitable for any home that you're trying to create. And I also want to use some additional wallpapers around the entire build and not just make it completely white, because I feel like that definitely would be very boring, especially since we do have these huge columns in the center. I feel like it can be a little bit interesting to play around with them. I want this central structure to look a little bit more visually appealing, so I'm going to try to find something that I feel like would feel a little bit more appropriate. I actually really see myself coming back to this book nook kit all the time. I actually really like this wooden one a lot. I feel like it works very nicely, but I don't like how everything on the second floor is the same color, so I might have to change it up a little bit. Maybe we can try the exact same wallpaper but in like a different color swatch, maybe like a dark brown. I actually really like the contrast that it gives, so I'm going to try to do something like this, where we have like half, like this section of the build is like this beige color and the rest is like this black color. Or we can also try to use this white, but I feel like that might look actually that's not too bad, to be honest, considering they are very different in shades and stuff. But I feel like I'm going to keep it with the black for now, but we'll come back to that later on. And since we ended up going for this wallpaper, I might actually just do that for the other side as well, just like for the sake of consistency. Now for the backsplash for the kitchen area, I know I want it to be in this area, and it kind of sucks that it's not centered, because like there's like one tile that goes in here, but I still feel like it would be a perfect place to position it within this area of the build. I kind of always use this one as my go-to because I feel like it works very nicely in pretty much any environment. And I also tend to always go with this really dark bluish sort of like turquoisey color, and I feel like this would actually contrast very nicely with some kitchen cabinets. So let's try to figure out which kitchen cabinets we want to use for this build. Now the initial build ended up using these ones, but I kind of want to use something else, maybe like the other base game one, or we can also use the Home Chef Hustle one. We'll of course have to change the color of it. I feel like it definitely would look very nice in a bright open swatch like this. I feel like that actually works very nicely, considering we also have this beige color on the walls as well on both of the columns. And I might actually extend the cabinets on this wall as well, just to like maximize as much of the space usage as possible. But I do actually want to take into consideration the stair placement, so I might actually place it on this side instead. So I was thinking of placing the counters like this initially, but I don't know how well it fits into the current style that I was envisioning in my mind. So I might actually move this off to the other side and just like try to create a column over here. And I feel like that might actually box it in very nicely, so we kind of just have like that extra little space closed off, because I feel like that kind of just made it look a little bit too confusing for my liking. And I was thinking of adding the kitchen cabinet island counters like right in the center like this, and I feel like that actually isn't too bad. And we might actually just get rid of this because it makes it feel and look a little bit too built in for my liking. And we might just leave it something like this, which feels definitely a lot more open and airy. I feel like none of the stovetop actually have the proper color swatch for this, so I'm just going to leave it at this color, which is pretty much the same thing, but it's not at the same time. So I feel like that one just definitely feels like the most appropriate at the moment. And instead of going for the hood range that came from that game pack, I'm actually going to go for this base game one because I actually really like using this, and I'm just going to use it in the very plain white color swatch. And I feel like that actually looks super nice. And I'm thinking of maybe replacing this backsplash with the one that came from the book note kit, just so it feels a lot more functional in the sense that like it connects a lot better together. And I might just extend it over this side as well, and maybe over here. And I feel like that might actually look a little bit more interesting. And maybe we can also add some simple shelving unit pieces over here because I feel like it feels a little bit too empty. And we can also end up adding the sink unit area as well, just to make it feel a little bit more complete. And of course functional. I think I like the white a lot nicer on this counter because it sits really flush and blends really nicely together. So I'm just going to add one of my favorite things to do, which is just incorporating the coffee machine off to the side. And I don't actually mind these counters at the top here, but I'm still going to get rid of them because I feel like it doesn't work very nicely for this build. And maybe we can get rid of this shelving unit and then just have it stacked on this side like this, and then we can just like populate it with a few clutter pieces. So I'm just going to add this fire thing. I'm just going to add it right here just so it's like not really that visible. And we'll also end up adding some more interesting stuff to this entrance area, but for now we're just kind of just like focusing on the main living spaces. And since we do have this ledge over the island counter itself, I want to just incorporate some simple seaters over here. So I might just use these ones that came from Snowy Escape in a brighter color swatch. And I'm also going to add a simple trash can. Once again, I'm just going to use one of my favorite ones, which is this one that came from the event. And I just feel like this one is the perfect combination of just like functionality, yet also looking super modern and sleek. Looking at this right now, I actually completely forgot to add the fridge, which is pretty much what happens when I talk over my speed builds. I kind of just forget certain stuff that I need to incorporate that are functional and needed. And I'm just going to replace this wall counter piece with the fridge itself. Although it doesn't really match exactly with the counters, I don't really mind it, especially since it does match with the other functional pieces. And I think these ones from Life and Death actually work very nicely here, especially since we might add some gold accents later on, but if we don't, we could just always end up using this white swatch. And we also need to add some small little clutter pieces onto the island counter itself as well. So might just actually use this because this is one of my favorite plants. And maybe we could try to add a small simple painting right above where we have this coffee station. So I tend to always use this one that came from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. I feel like this one works very nicely in all of my environments. And I'm just going to try to look and see if I can find anything else that might be a little bit more appropriate. See, I like this one actually as well. So we can maybe use this one. I just wish it came in a different color swatch for the wooden frame because it doesn't match the one that we're going for currently. But we can also go for something like this, which actually looks very nice and interesting. And on the other side of the column, I might just add some simple mirrors. So I might just add like 2 simple mirrors right here. And I feel like that actually doesn't look too bad, to be honest. Yeah, I feel like something like this definitely does fit this little area of the space very nicely. Or maybe we might just get rid of the sea itself and also just like try to add something in between both of these. Or maybe we could just place this painting right in the center and then we can have these mirrors on both sides, which might actually look intriguing because it's kind of like a unique design. And initially I made fun of this like little box that EA made when they made their space initially, but I kind of understand like why they did it because it definitely does kind of just like make the space feel a little bit more smaller. We might go back to using this little space, but I feel like I want to keep it as it is for now. So for my bathrooms, I tend to just use the Spade tiles because I feel like they're pretty much one of my go-tos. So since we have a really weird space to work with, I'm going to try to add and incorporate some of the original objects that the game kind of had. So they kind of had this like triangular shaped spa area, but I feel like this wouldn't look very appropriate here, but I'm going to try to fit it in anyway because I feel like I want to stay true to the original design, but just like make it feel a bit more renovated. So I'm going to end up going with this one, which came with the Get Famous expansion pack. And I'm also going to go for the Snowy Escape toilet right in this little corner. It's not really ideal. I don't really like how scrunched up it is in this like little corner and we have this huge diagonal area. However, I feel like it works the best with the current situation that we're in. I'm going to do one of my favorite designs, which is just placing this Dream Home Decorator sink unit area right in the center. And I'm just going to use the Dream Home Decorator kitchen cabinet, like the thin versions, right beneath it, just like to get it to like a floating design, which is pretty much one of my favorite and go-to designs in my modern builds. And I feel like that fit that 2 tile space super nicely in the end. And of course we need to change the flooring, so we're going to just change it to this plain white tiling. Maybe we could just like do a different, like a darker color swatch to make it contrast a lot nicer with the wallpaper itself. And I'm also going to add a simple mirror. So I might try to find something that is a lot smaller, but only for this bathroom, because I feel like we don't really have a lot of space to work with. So maybe we could use the one that came from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, but I feel like at the same time, I don't really want to use a huge curve like that. Maybe we could use the one that came from the Spa Day game pack. I feel like this one actually works super nicely in this area because it's kind of small and it doesn't take up too much space. So I feel like it fits appropriately. And I feel like we also need to add some additional clutter pieces on top of these walls because I feel like it looks way too plain. So we're just going to add some simple sort of like toothbrush decals and the soap dispenser. And of course, we're going to add some additional stuff on top of the wallpaper itself as well. And then we can also add this from the bathroom clutter kit. And I also want to add a simple rug in the center of this room. I'm actually place the rug over here because it feels a lot more nicer there. And since we have quite a lot of space to work with, I'm going to add a small little poof in the corner of this bathtub area because I feel like it might not look too bad, to be honest. And maybe we could just like try to add an accent wall on one of these walls, and maybe we can use this tiling from the steep bathroom kit, which I feel like might look super nice here. And I'm also going to use it on this wall over here as well. And I'm also going to end up changing the blind as well because I feel like that doesn't really match the vibe that we're trying to go for this build. And we might go for this one instead, which I feel like definitely works a lot more nicer in this environment. So I'm just going to try to create and blend it in nicely with the rest of this bathroom. And we're also going to incorporate some unique lighting into this room to differentiate it a bit from the rest of the build. So we're just going to pick probably this one that came from the sleek bathroom kit. I feel like this one would be suitable in this bathroom, and I'm just going to go with the plain simple white color for it. And we could pretty much move on to something else now. So initially we're going to have the dining table area here, and we're going to have the living space over here with some extra stuff around here, like another like seating area. I think we're going to move on into the dining table area because I want to leave the living space for last because I feel like that one's definitely going to turn out really great and I want to spend some nice time on it to make it look as nice as possible. So we're going to move on into this dining table area, and I'm just going to go for something that I tend to enjoy using in The Sims 4, which is I believe the one that came from, yeah, I really like this one that came from the event, but I feel like it might not work with the modern design that we're going for in this build. So we're going to go for maybe this one from Seasons. I just feel like this one works all around, to be honest. It works in like modern, traditional farmhouses, whatever. I feel like it works super nicely. And we do actually have a very bright theme going on, so I'm going to go for a brighter color swatch over here as well. And I also want to incorporate some nice looking dining table chairs. I might go for these ones because I actually really like the look of these. And maybe we could play around with the different colors for it. So maybe we can go for like a dark brown for the actual seat itself. Or is it not really, it's not really working, to be honest, because the brown that we have over here is like very muted. So maybe we can like try to go for like a gray color. Maybe that would be a bit more interesting. But then again, it kind of just like strips away the color that we wanted to add to this room or like this space. But I feel like that doesn't actually look too bad, to be honest. So I might keep that for now, but we'll come back if I do end up changing it for anything else. And I'm also going to incorporate this tray item right in the center because I feel like it always looks nice to just place something in the center of a huge dining table area like this. I actually don't mind that, to be honest, but at the same time, it definitely does not fit the vibe that we're trying to go for. So I think we're going to get rid of that one as well. And maybe we could try something like this one maybe, and then just change the color of it to become something else that fits the vibe a bit more. And to be honest, I honestly might just go for this one because it just works very nicely. And I'm just going to scale it up a little bit by using the tool mod, and I just feel like that works out a lot more nicer than the rest of the rugs that we have. And I also want to add a little console table on this side of the wall. I was looking through a few decorational objects and I feel like this doesn't actually look too bad, to be honest, considering like it's just like nice and simple. And then maybe we can just add these sconce lighting pieces on either side, and that might actually not look too bad, to be honest. But at the same time, we can also incorporate some sort of sculpture here or like a simple art piece instead. And I also want to add a good lighting fixture right above the dining table area, something that is just a bit more different from the rest of the objects that we have selected. Maybe we can go for something like this, which is just like these simple hanging lights, which I actually don't mind, to be honest. I feel like these look very nice in any situation and scenario. I actually don't mind this black swatch in particular. I feel like it looks very nice overall. So I think we're going to go for that for now. And I'm also going to use this saucer light right in the center because I feel like that one still emits a lot more light. And while we're adding light fixtures, I actually completely forgot to add some unique ones into the kitchen area itself. So we're just going to add these saucer lights off to the edges. So usually I like doing something like this where I have the pendant light right next to where we have the edge of the kitchen itself. And I actually might go with that instead because I feel like it works super nicely with the rest of the gold accents that we have in the room already. I feel like this dark concrete texture looks very nice in this corner. And then we can also end up using some mirrors. Maybe we could do something like this and it just makes it look a little bit more interesting. And we can also end up adding some extra foliage around this entire space because the dining table section of this build definitely does feel a little bit too bare. So we could just add this simple olive tree right in the corner over here. And we can also add some additional seating around, and we just add that on both of the corners. And I feel like that definitely would help with making the build feel a little bit more unique and complete. Maybe just keep it on one side because it feels a little bit too much if we add it everywhere. Now for this huge window area, I don't want to cover it up with curtains, and I want all of my builds to have a lot of natural lighting and stuff like that because I feel like it makes the game look a lot better. So I just kind of just like try to keep it to a minimal, but also just like trying to make it look as realistic as possible. And I feel like this definitely is a nice combination. I also want to end up changing this small little section area because I mentioned earlier in the video how I wanted to incorporate some unique wallpapers into this build. Even if we're going for a very minimalistic design, I want there to be certain accents throughout this entire build that stand out a lot more. So I'm going to try to find some specific wallpapers that I feel like might be appropriate. Definitely not that, but just something else that would work in this space. This zebra pattern that came from the Lovestock expansion pack isn't actually too bad because it kind of just pops out and stands out a lot, and it also looks very interesting. Maybe we can also go for this like leopard pattern as well. I feel like this one isn't too bad either. Kind of want to go for something that has a bit more black and white because it matches the rest of the color scheme that we're going for. But I'm going to try to make this space feel a little bit more fun and interesting. And then we're going to change the lighting fixture here, maybe to something like this, which kind of looks interesting and really matches nicely with the zebra wallpaper. And then maybe we can incorporate a bar in here of some sort, and I feel like it might look nice on this edge. But at the same time, I did want to incorporate a small office space into this area as well. But I do actually have other ideas for this space as well, just turning into like a generic seating area. So I might actually do that first of all, because I feel like that was the main idea that I had. So I'm going to just find this one. Yeah, this I believe is the one that came from the refined living kit. And I feel like it's going to work very nicely with the specific objects that I have in mind. So maybe we could go for something like this in this little area. And I'm just going to try to position it a lot nicer, because I might also want to incorporate a little bar area like this off to the diagonal corner piece, and I feel like that just ties it in very nicely together. But I also want to change the color of this to just match the rest of the objects that we have going on in this build, and potentially just add some little clutter pieces like this on top of the bar area itself as well. And maybe we could fit some sort of bookshelf on this wall. It might actually make it look a little bit more interesting and also just add a bit of functionality to the room. So maybe we could go for these, which are the hanging ones, and these actually came from conveniently from the City Living expansion pack, so I feel like this works very nicely over here. And we can also add some like small little details and stuff like that here as well. So we can go for the miniature vine, which is one of my favorite plants, like one of the favorite like smaller plants in the game. It's just very versatile and just easy to place everywhere. And we can also add one of these small picture frames right above this part here as well, so it just kind of like makes it feel very complete and nice. And you guys can obviously customize that to your liking. And right over here, it feels really bare above the bar area itself as well, so we're just going to add a simple painting above it. We can actually try to incorporate this base game one, but at the same time I just feel like it doesn't really come in a lot of great colors. Oh, actually wait, hold on, we might actually go for this instead for the lighting fixture, and it also just kind of like acts as like a nice little decal here as well. I actually really liked having the painting behind it for some reason. I feel like it kind of gave it like a unique design. We could also go for this fur rug, but at the same time I feel like this one also kind of just for some reason doesn't fit the vibe of the area. And I'm just going to size it up using the tool mod because I feel like this one gives just me a bit more freedom. Or maybe we could layer something and do something like this, because I feel like that actually doesn't look very bad. I feel like we might actually keep it like this for now. But yeah, so now we're going to move slowly into the living space area, and I want to just make this space kind of match the other seating area that we just had. So once again, we might just go into the refined living kit seaters, and I don't know how much space we're going to have for this living space area, so I'm just going to find the free seater and just place it right in the center where we have this huge column area. And I feel like this actually doesn't look too bad, to be honest, considering we're working with such a small amount of space. And for the main coffee table area, so I might use these ones instead, which are the get to work little table areas that you can't find in the generic sort of coffee table section. And I really love this overall design that it has, because it actually blends super nicely together. And for the actual fireplace, I really want to go for this one because I like the overall design of it. I feel like it can work, I guess, but I feel like something like this would work a lot nicer because it has like a bit more of like a nice basic shape to it. Maybe we could just go for a stony color, and we can also just place a simple huge TV right above it, which I feel like would make it look very nice, especially since it has that double ceiling height, and especially with the sort of like balcony catwalk area, it would definitely look very interesting. And I'm just going to place it as high as I possibly could, but just like also make it make sense at the same time. Just added some clutter to this little living space area, something like this, just to make it feel and look a little bit more lived in. And I also want to add another like little functional piece, which is this audio player, which I feel like definitely is very nice in this small little corner area. So I'm thinking of using this grown together wall sconce on the walls just like this on both sides of the TV unit area. And I also want to incorporate a huge living space chandelier as well. So I just placed a simple platform right above the living space area, and I just added this very fancy lighting fixture right in the center of this living space. And now I'm just going to move this platform right back into its place just to ensure that it just like works very nicely. And as you guys can see, the lighting fixture didn't move at all, so it's just like a great way of incorporating a lighting fixture on the second floor, because like sometimes when you incorporate it, you want to go down to the first floor and you might see it if you raise it up using the number 9 key. So I just wanted to just like do that in a way that feels a bit more efficient and a bit more like easy to play with, if that makes sense. And of course, just going back and just adding the wallpaper into the empty areas. But yeah, so I'm really happy with the overall end result of this living space. I feel like it feels super cozy, but I do want to incorporate some additional artwork pieces on these walls because I feel like it feels super bare and empty. And I'm just going to start off by placing this one, which is a very basic piece, but I feel like it works very nicely in this little area. And I'm just going to try to center it as nice as possible. So maybe we can add these lighting strips that I mentioned earlier right next to it. And I feel like that actually doesn't look too bad, to be honest. I feel like there's not really much that we can typically do around here, because I feel like this is like a random wall you can decorate and do whatever you want. But for here, I feel like it's kind of a bit more difficult. So I feel like I might just keep it as it is for now. So moving on into the second floor now. And I'm going to make all of the rooms on the second floor just have a plain white wall as a start. And then we could just like change it as we progress. But I'm not really sure how much I'm liking this plain black wall, but for the sake of trying to preserve the original design that this apartment had, I'm going to keep the black walls in the main corridor areas. And we're just going to use one of these basic arches to just make a little open way, and we're just going to end up creating like a little mini walk-in wardrobe area into this small section. And we might actually end up incorporating a little office space somewhere as well if we do have a bit of space, or we could just edit this small little area later on and just like turn it into like an office space area. But right now I just want to focus on the second floor, and I want to also copy the wall sconces that we had right next to where we had the dining table area, because this is just going to add a bit of color to these really dark walls that we currently have going on. And right over here, I already thought about like what I wanted to do, and that was kind of just like to create a little additional seating space area right in like a landing sort of like lobby space area. And we can just add a small little like painting easel right next to it, and just like trying to make it feel a little bit more functional. So I'm just going to add these two little seating areas over here, but I'm also wanting to add a painting right in the center over here. So maybe we could use this one that came from the Myshuno pack, but at the same time I feel like maybe we could just do something like this where we stack these 3 paintings along the wall, and then we just change the color swatches for them so it just looks a little bit different in each one. And once again, we also need a nice unique pendant lighting right in the center of this landing area. Maybe we can go with a fancy chandelier, but at the same time I feel like that definitely does not fit this environment. Maybe we can go for these ones again, because I feel like these definitely do work super nicely within this build. We could also go for this one because we are going with the tallest wall height for the second floor, even though it's not really like an option, but more so because it's kind of just like built that way. So we might go for this one and just change the lighting fixture to become the black swatch, which actually doesn't look too bad, but I feel like we should go for the white swatch instead. And I also want to add a small little coffee table right in the center as well. Although it doesn't really look like a proper coffee table, I feel like it just feels a little bit more appropriate since we don't really have a lot of space to work with. And I'm also wanting to add some sort of like fireplace area. Maybe we could go for something like this, and I actually don't mind that, to be honest. And for the rug area, we can actually go for this very curvy one that came from Snowy Escape, and I feel like this one won't look too bad on the second floor. I don't really know if it makes a lot of sense to place a rug on top of a carpet, but at the same time I don't really mind it, to be honest, and I feel like it is kind of like the way to go for this room in particular. And maybe we can also add this small guitar here as well, just like adding to the functionality of the build. And I feel like we're definitely complete with this lobby space area for the second floor. Let's move on into one of the public bathrooms that this house has to offer, just using a simple basic tile for like a wall accent, simple tiling for the floors, and we could do these small tiles for the walls themselves. And I'm just going to go for these super generic options for these bathrooms because I feel like we already have a lot of them going around. And I'm just going to use this Dream Home Decorator sink, and I'm also going to incorporate a very basic shower area. And I'm also just going to place a simple Snowy Escape toilet on this side of the bathroom. And I'm just going to complete it with a nice simple mirror. And that is pretty much it for these like little public bathroom areas. I feel like we don't really need to do too much to them considering there's like not a lot of space to work with. However, we could end up changing some of the flooring and adding like a little rug and stuff here and there to make it feel a little bit more different and complete. So we can just go back into the rug section and just add this simple Snowy Escape one right in the center of where we have the bath itself. So I'm just going to go for this simple sleek bathroom light fixture, and I feel like that definitely does feel nice and complete, and I'm just going to leave that as it is. And we're going to start to move on into this primary bedroom suite. I think we're going to place the bed in a location like this because I feel like we're going to be able to use up a lot of the space to like create custom little seating areas and stuff like that. And I want to just move it away from the wall itself, and I'm going to do one of my favorite designs when it comes to these more luxurious bedrooms, which is just creating this very long and wide looking bedside table, which is done by placing these bedside drawers. But I feel like the lighting is actually messing up quite a lot in this bedroom, so I feel like we're not going to be able to do that. So instead we're just going to use these bedside tables that came from the Life and Death expansion pack, and I'm just going to go with a plain color for them because I feel like that will just feel the most appropriate. Or we can also go for these ones, which I actually feel like look very nice and interesting. I feel like that definitely does fit a lot nicer than the Life and Death one because I feel like these ones look a little bit more artsy, a little bit more contemporary. I'm going to go ahead and incorporate these Businesses and Hobbies bedside lamps. I feel like these are one of my favorites that have came into the game. I feel like these ones are very versatile and can be used in a lot of modern builds. And once again, since we are also working with a room that has a bunch of different windows, I want to ensure that we do also cover it up with a bit of these curtains. Just change the color of them, and we're also going to change the lighting fixture that we have for this bedroom. I feel like these wicker ones don't actually look too bad in this scenario, so we're going to go with those ones in a darker color swatch, and I feel like that actually looks very nice right next to where we have the bed. And since we have quite a lot of this like bright light going on, I want to make sure that I use a different color for the accent wall behind the bed itself because I want to try to make it feel a little bit more complete. I feel like that actually looks super nice with the black color swatch that we have from the book nook kit that we have actually used for the hallway area, but I feel like I don't want to overuse it in the bedrooms themselves as well, so we might have to go with something like this instead, which is like simple paneling. But at the same time I feel like that doesn't fit the vibe of the build at all, so I was thinking that maybe we can go for something like this, which also came from Businesses and Hobbies, and I feel like this one definitely works super nicely in this build. And I feel like we actually have quite a lot of wall space that we aren't utilizing next to the bed. And I'm going to incorporate this simple walk-in wardrobe dresser off to the side of the wall. And there's kind of like a weird lighting glitch going on. So I'm going to try to use a darker color just to like blend it in with that issue. But I'm not really sure what it's being caused by. But I still want to just like use some extra colors that we haven't utilized yet that is incorporated in this bedroom. There we go. I feel like that actually looks very nice overall. I'm just going to populate it with a bit of clothing items. And there we go. I feel like that actually looks very nice overall. We're going to move that by one tile and just incorporate a little small mirror into this corner over here. And I feel like this actually works a lot more nicer with the vision that I was trying to go for. And I'm going to use these simple luxe seaters right in the center of the bedroom, because I feel like we're going to be able to create a cozy little seating atmosphere within the bedroom itself. And I just really like the idea of having a little seating area within a bedroom like this. I actually really love this small cozy little seating area. It kind of just takes all the designs that we have throughout the entire home, just like puts it into this bedroom, and I feel like that is a very unique touch. But yeah, so now finally moving on into the primary bedroom ensuite. So let's just try to create something that is very luxurious for this bedroom ensuite, and I'm just going to start off by using some simple tiles. Maybe we'll use the ones that came from the Lovestruck expansion pack, because I feel like these ones feel super fancy. And we're going to just also end up using some of my favorite bathroom items, which are pretty much all of the ones that came from the sleek bathroom kit. And I just love the overall end result of it right next to where we have this huge glass window. I just feel like the bathtub just looks super fancy right there. But yeah, so we're going to just do that. I'm just going to place this super simple towel holder right next to it, because I feel like it would feel super luxurious to have something like that in real life. I'm going to change the color swatch to make it black and white, because I actually really like the fixtures to have this nice matte sort of like black finish. I feel like it looks a lot more fancier. And I'm going to keep the towel holder in a nice simple plain white color. And I just filtered by the sleek bathroom kit, because I want to try to use some of these specific tiles which are very unique and interesting, like these small half walls. I feel like you guys can definitely get really creative with these. So I'm just going to try to create a small little wall section that is kind of just like poking out from the main wall itself, and I'm just going to add some little details here and there to make it look a little bit more realistic, and of course change the lighting fixture. And maybe we can try to incorporate this toilet right inside of this wall area, so it's kind of just like poking out, and I feel like that kind of gives it like a very modern minimalistic effect. And we can also change the color swatch of that to be black to just match the rest of the fixtures that we have throughout this bathroom. And I feel like that already looks very nice overall. I'm super happy with the end result of that. But now we can finally move on into actually creating the sink unit area. And instead of just using the generic one that came with the kit, because I feel like that, although that looks very nice, I still want to use the Dream Home Decorator ones, because I feel like those ones definitely would look a lot more nicer in this situation with how modern we're trying to go. So I'm just going to create a double vanity sink unit area. So I'm just going to place one over here right in the center and one right at the end, and I feel like that definitely does give it like a very luxurious effect that it's all like floating, which is kind of cool. And I actually really like the mirror that comes in this kit. However, I feel like we should use something else that feels a little bit more appropriate, such as this one. This one just feels a little bit more cleaner, a lot more sleek, and it's kind of just like all around great for a double vanity unit sink area like this. And I also want to incorporate these robe holders right over here, since we do have some extra space to play around with. And right above it, we just placed these simple shelving unit pieces, and on top of them I kind of just want to place some additional sort of like clutter pieces based on like the bathroom, such as this simple soap holder, and of course some small little extra details like the toilet paper as well, which I feel like just adds to the realism, to be honest. I want to change some of the walls to have some nice unique accent pieces, so maybe we can go for a dark grayish color behind the sink unit area, and I don't really mind that, to be honest. I feel like it looks really great and it contrasts super nicely with the color swatches that we have selected. But I feel like the light sort of like yellowish beige color also works very nicely. But for the bathtub area, we could potentially use a black backsplash like this, and I feel like that actually works super nicely. And maybe we can also incorporate a rug right in the center where we have the vanity sort of like sink unit areas, and I feel like that would actually look a lot nicer as well. And maybe just change these walls to be tiling, and I feel like that actually looks very nice and complete. But yeah, so we're finally moving on into the nursery area, and we could just start off by placing this little rug in the center. And we don't actually have a lot of space to work with in this nursery, but we're just going to try to make the most out of it, just adding this simple crib over here with like a little feeding table, and of course adding the changing table that came from Growing Together, and maybe just add a few decals here and there to make it feel a little bit more childlike. And although we don't really have a window in this nursery, I still wanted to add a few curtains here and there, just like to add a bit of like detailing to the room, I guess, since all of the walls feel relatively bare and there's not really much that we can do about it. So just adding a few little details like that definitely does help bring the room alive a little bit. So I just added a small little toy box over here while also adding some extra toys in here. And I also wanted to add some extra details within the nursery, such as the shelving unit area with some custom little nursery sort of like necessity items. And I feel like the last thing that we need to do within this nursery is just to incorporate a nice simple wallpaper that is appropriate for this bedroom. And I'm just going to use this super simple starry moony sort of designed wallpaper that came from the Gemology game pack, and I feel like this definitely does fit very nicely with the monochromatic simple theme that we have going across this entire build. And I feel like this nursery is pretty much complete, and I feel like it's turned out super nicely overall. But yeah, so we're finally moving on into the last bedroom that we have in this apartment, and we're just going to start off by placing a nice simple bed in the center of the room. Since we have a nice simple bright color scheme throughout the rooms themselves on the second floor, I decided to go for a bright and open color scheme for this bedroom as well, with a few gold accent touches here and there. And I want to incorporate the Life and Death expansion pack bedside drawers, because I feel like these one would look very nice with the simple white bed that we have, which also came from the Dream Home Decorator game pack, in case you guys are wondering. And I just wanted to place that nicely on either side. And to make this bedroom feel a little bit more interesting rather than making something that feels very generic, I want to place these very tall hanging lights on both sides of the drawers, pretty much emulating a bedside light design. And I really love the overall look of this. And since the wall feels super bare with just like having everything be super plain and white, we also want to change the accent for this room as well. I feel like this one actually looks super nice, which has these like flowing lines. I feel like it looks nice and detailed yet simple at the same time. And the bedside tables do feel a little bit bare, so I'm just going to add a few details onto them, such as like adding a bit of clutter and a few little like plant pots here and there. And since we have a little extra space on this wall, I'm deciding to place a nice simple wall mirror on this side. And since we have this little extra indent area where we place an arch, I want to incorporate a small little walk-in wardrobe area, nothing too fancy or special. So I'm going to go with the Dream Home Decorator modular pieces. And I feel like although they are relatively merged and kind of really close together, I don't mind it too much. Or we could create a much simpler design like this, which I feel like feels a little bit more spacious than the one that we previously had. And I'm going to change the color swatches of them to this white and beige color, of course adding the top part as well. And I'm thinking of changing the wallpaper in this small little wardrobe area as well to sound like this, which I feel like would also help with making it feel and look a little bit more different. And since we don't have a lot of space to house a little seating area in this bedroom, I'm just going to add this little love seat on the end of the bed. And I'm also going to incorporate a small little TV unit area right above where we have the wall. And I just feel like that might help with adding a bit more functionality to this bedroom. And because we have some extra space to play around with, I'm going to just add this very simple and small bookshelf on the wall. And this painting just fits very nicely right above the bed, so I'm going to keep it as it is. And we're going to finally move on into this bedroom's ensuite, which has a bunch of different glass facing out into the views. However, I still feel like it is a very perfect location for like an ensuite because it just feels super fancy and luxurious. And I'm of course going to try to place and implement this bathtub in a way that is very like kind of like slanted in one of the corners, which kind of just like makes it already stand out and just like flash a lot more uniquely than just like having it in like the corner or like in like a little perfect like sectional like rectangular area. And I'm going to use these simple tilings that came from Spa Day game pack, of course adding some simple towel racks on the corner. And since we don't actually have a lot of space to work with in this bathroom, I'm instead going to just use one simple sink unit area, which in case you guys are wondering, this is the one that came from the sleek bathroom kit. And I'm also going to be using the toilet that came from the Snowy Escape expansion pack. And I feel like the players will be able to easily navigate around this bathroom area without having any issues. And I actually really like this layout because it's kind of like flowy. It's not really like a simple basic shape. And I'm just going to add this super basic beveled mirror right above the sink unit area, which came from Growing Together expansion pack. And I'm just going to place it in a nice simple white swatch, which I feel like feels very appropriate with the rest of the color scheme that we have in this bathroom. And once again, just changing all of the wallpapers because I feel like I really want this bathroom to have its own accent walls, which I feel like definitely just makes it feel a little bit more unique and different to the rest of the bathrooms. And once again, let's just add some simple paintings into this bathroom area. And we can also add one of these ceramic shelving unit pieces right here where we have the other towel holders. And we might be able to add the huge sort of like vine plant right on top of it, which I feel like would make it feel super complete. And it just adds a bit of greenery and a bit of color to this room, especially since we don't actually have a lot going on. And let's also add a simple pendant light right in the center of the room, which I feel like just makes this bathroom feel super complete and very chic in the end. Let me just add a toilet paper holder before I forget. And I feel like that is pretty much complete for this ensuite as well. So let's just move back down on the first floor because I do want to incorporate some sort of small little office area. And since we have this little space off to the side of the dining table area, I don't actually mind having it in a empty space like this. So I'm just going to start off by placing this super simple desk which came from the Life and Death expansion pack, just using a nice bright open airy swatch. And I'm going to use one of my favorite computers in the game, which is this immersive bend one, which has this very nice and sleek design to it, which I feel like is very appropriate for this build. And I'm also going to use the Life and Death chair as well because I feel like it definitely does work very nicely within this small little space. And I'm just adding a few little clutter pieces like that on top of the table, and I feel like that is pretty much complete for that small office area. I'm really happy with how it turned out. We could have used this little space, but I feel like it wasn't really that necessary. But yeah, so that is pretty much it for this entire apartment renovation. Let me know what you guys think about this build by leaving a like and subscribing, and comment down below if you guys like this renovation or not. I would love to know your thoughts in the comment sections below. And I do also have a bunch of videos like this on the channel if you guys are interested in builds like these. But now I'll showcase the tour to you guys so you guys can navigate throughout the entire build, and I'll see you guys in my next video.